So Democrats are looking at that and saying, like, wait a second, we have this in Venezuela. We might have another incursion into Greenland. Like, what are we doing here?
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It's Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, Democrats debate strategy over how to push back on Trump's Venezuelan action. Is a war powers vote enough? Number two, Congress heads to another ACA shutdown. And number three, the latest on Senator Tim Scott's crypto leap of faith. All right, Jake, let's get into it. All eyes are on this war powers resolution vote that Senator Tim Kaine is pushing. But this morning we lead the newsletter, interestingly enough, looking at Democrats trying to figure out a strategy of how to push back on Donald Trump. Whatever issue it is, there's always the question, is it the right strategy? Are they doing enough? And there's been a divide on a variety of issues between some members of the Senate Democratic caucus and others who want to push harder, make the Trump administration feel more pain. But right now you see Kaine's resolution really having the momentum and the leadership backing as the vehicle with which they think that they can push back against Trump.
Yeah, there's two issues at play here. There is the war powers resolutions, which is a way for Congress to push back and say that basically try to handcuff the administration on how the president can use his powers to conduct foreign policy and military intervention. Of course, President Trump would veto those if they pass the Senate and the House and they don't have the votes to override a veto. And then there's the question of whether they should use spending bills to try to force policy change. And, Democrats seem to not want to use the power of the purse to stop Trump or to try to stop Trump. They don't want to shut down the government. And this gets to the ultimate question that we faced, in the government shutdown just a couple months ago, right, Anna? I mean, do you try to bring things to the brink to enact a policy change? And you have people like Tina Smith, Rosa DeLauro saying it basically like, let's stick to the war powers votes and not mess around with funding. And then you have someone like Chris Murphy, who's much more aggressive is the word, I guess, to use, saying like, what are we doing here, guys? Why are we the minority party if we're not going to really fight Trump? And I think that is a big divide, right? That is a big divide because they're like, because someone like Murphy, he's not saying this directly. He's like, I'm not just going along to get along here, right, Anna. And that is going to be a dynamic that you see raised to the surface in the coming weeks with more people.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've already started to see this, right? I think there has been questioning about strategy, about how Democrats are pushing back. Certainly, we had Chris Murphy on FIOT Day, and he basically said, he used to be a deal maker. He used to be the guy that people could work with when it was Republicans and Democrats, but that has been a complete shift for him, that he is no longer interested in that he feels like, the country, I'm paraphrasing, but the country is under attack and that Democrats need to be pushing back harder than they have been. And this is just I think a key example, right, where you really see leadership and some Democrats saying like, listen, we don't need another government shutdown. We don't need where we aren't going to get what we want ultimately. And, while we might be facing a threat, like this isn't the time or the place. Let's get to the midterms where we can win and actually get control back.
Yeah. And by the way, Anna, I'm going to do something a little bit crazy here. I'm going to combine something in the newsletter that you didn't even mention, which is our fourth card this morning, which is about Greenland, because this all kind of fits together. It's a big jigsaw puzzle, right? Because it's not just Venezuela. It's not just the military action that the president took in Venezuela to topple Maduro. Now, the president says that the regime is going to send, a bunch of oil to the United States. It's Greenland. I mean, Democrats hear the administration is now saying they're not ruling out military action to capture Greenland.
Right.
So we not only have an administration that has gone into Venezuela and toppled the president or the leader of Venezuela, they're saying they might go into Greenland. So Democrats are looking at that and saying like, wait a second, we have this in Venezuela. We might have another incursion into Greenland. Like, what are we doing here? And if you listen to even Republicans right now are saying, Brian Fitzpatrick, this is a great item that Anthony, Brianna, myself, and Brez did. It's not going to happen. That's Republican
Right.
Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, Don Bacon. It's appalling. These are our allies. The chair of the Armed Services, and this is about Greenland. The chair of the Armed Services Committee, Mike Rogers. My guess is this is him priming the pump to make some offer toward the Greenlanders. I don't even know if that is that Greenlanders. Let's not even go there. I guess that's probably what it's called, to connect with us in a stronger way. But I don't know. I mean, like, people have questions, and I don't blame them. And Democrats are like, guys, again, Congress, not a potted plant, has a role on foreign policy, has the power of the purse. I just think that, like, Democrats are like, guys, we have to do something,
Some,
and we have to take things to the max.
some Democrats are
Some,
saying that.
yeah.
But at the same point, I would say, and you could argue, Congress has for years abdicated its role when it comes to foreign conflicts across the country for Republican and Democratic presidents. And we are now seeing what happens when Congress, kind of retreats on issues over time. And then you're having a president who's willing to really push the limit here. The item on Greenland is really interesting because it's such a different posture you're seeing, right? A NATO country with Denmark, what that would mean for the alliance, what that would mean for the U.S. vis-a-vis its relationships across the country. Very different than the world reaction to what the administration did when it comes to Venezuela.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll say this again. Once you lose this power, once you abdicate your role, it's difficult to claw it back. And I think you're now seeing Democrats, and we've seen Republicans struggle with the same thing. So, yeah.
All right, we are going to be watching this closely, but so far, Democrats are moving forward with that Kane resolution, and we will see what happens in terms of the support it gets for Republicans and then what is next in the House if it ever comes up. All right, let's go to the number 2 story of the morning. Congress's healthcare battle continues today when the House will take its first procedural vote on the Democratic discharge petition to extend the ACA enhanced premium tax credits for 3 years. The procedural motion will pass, Jake, and the bill is expected to pass later this week. This is going to be kind of the opening towards this next round of negotiations. We've been reporting about this all week and kind of the 3 big issues, the hangups. Hard to see how they're going to find a way forward with this impasse, particularly when it comes to the Hyde Amendment. But the bipartisan lawmakers are bipartisaning, if that's a thing.
Yeah. 2 things are happening right now. So the discharge petition is going to get through the House this week. I mean, the White House is not engaging on this. It doesn't seem like the leadership is really working this. Maybe they are, and I'm missing it, but I don't see that. And the idea, which Mike Lawler kind of I think it was first voice on Flyout Day, where Lawler's like, this 3-year extension is not going to become law, but we're hoping the Senate will amend it and get it through.
Mm-hmm.
That element that Lawler talked about does seem to be happening, right? There are bipartisan talks. Tom Tillis is involved. He said the half-life for an opportunity for an agreement is every week you lose about 50%, which is, I think, right. I think the interesting thing is President Trump yesterday during that meeting with House Republicans said there needs to be flexibility on Hyde. Now, the Hyde Amendment, of course, is a principle that you cannot use taxpayer funds on abortion. There is the principle in appropriations, which is a long principle, but also this extends to the exchanges where people feel like, that state-based Obamacare exchanges are using taxpayer money for abortion services. Now, Trump is just like, you should be flexible. Come on, like we're all for this, but you got to get something done. This is not like saying you need to be flexible, like eat turkey on rye, not on wheat. Like that. It's like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about perhaps the most central and firmly held tenet in pro-life anti-abortion politics, right? Like,
It's sacrosanct. Yep.
It's sacrosanct. It has become a part of, I can't count how many legislative efforts that Hyde becomes a part of, right? It is the central kind of pro-life anti-abortion plank. So it's not that easy. And listen, some people who are pro a deal said, well, maybe this will give the Senate Republicans some cover to get something done. And maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe it will. I don't want
to be a tough vote for a lot of Senate Republicans, but especially a lot of House Republicans.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And as I keep saying, If there is a deal in the Senate, and I'm not sure there will be, but if there is, I think it's going to be a really difficult decision for Mike Johnson. And maybe he works behind the scenes with Thune to make sure there isn't a deal. But Thune, as Thune told Andrew earlier or last week, like he's not averse to a deal. Like if he has a bunch of Republicans who are for this, I think it's difficult for me to see. It's going to be really complicated. I think that's a dynamic we'll have to keep on watching.
All right, let's run to the number 3 story of the morning. Going into crypto land, Senate Banking Committee Chair Tim Scott is making the biggest gamble of his time atop the panel, scheduling a markup of landmark crypto market structure legislation next Thursday without the clear-cut support of key Democrats and Republicans. Congress often needs a deadline to get stuff done, but our team writes the challenges here are unusually stark. This is going to be very interesting. Obviously, crypto is putting a ton of pressure to get something done on this issue. They are major players when it comes to the elections. We saw that in the last election, and Republicans are very aware of that going into the midterms. But man, there has been this effort to get a bipartisan deal between Democrats and Republicans, and the skeptics are not on board, Jake.
The banking committee for I don't know how long, but a long time never even marked up a bill. Period.
It was like hundreds of days. It was a big joke among banking. I was like, when was the last Senate banking?
It's like, come on, guys, you got the keys. Turn on the car.
Right.
Like, let's get moving. This is seen as the low. I mean, remember this. I don't want to say low hanging fruit, but I guess low hanging fruit is relative, and it is seen as that. This is something that crypto folks have been hoping for a long time. And you're right. You bring up like a good point that I wouldn't have thought of, which is like crypto has the potential to dump zillions of dollars into the election, and zillions is not an exact amount.
It might be the right amount, though, when it comes to crypto. I mean, they have had there's no kind of tolerance level, which they say, oh, the spending is too much, right? I mean, they played a massive role.
Yes, exactly. And they seem to have unlimited cash to get into these elections, and they have had a huge role. So yes, very interesting. And Brendan will undoubtedly keep an eye on this.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. If you like the Daily Punch, share it on social media. Tell your friends. It's the best way to find out about us. And of course, you can go deeper on all these issues and more by signing up for our free morning newsletter at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.